Water. Gunagyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ajnulambita Bujo Kanakabadato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambara Dvijabaro Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gauradai Pushpavanto Chitro Sando Tamulu Vandeham Shri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charano Saho Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subala Priyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabhanu Sute Devamami Hari Shri Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki jai, Shri Shri Raji Gopal ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai, Gaur Nityananda ki jai, Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande. So, good morning again to everyone. Reading from a book in progress, tentatively entitled Sakya Pranay, and this involves, as we've been hearing, the Seish Kumar Leela of Krishna, the end of his childhood, at which time he becomes the cowherder. So his flute appears at this time, and his friends appear at this time. And along with the Sakyaras comes so much Hasyarasa, which is the best friend of Sakyaras. Hasyarasa means joking. And although that hasn't been mentioned here, it will going forward in the next couple of chapters, which also include this, the Seish Kumar Leela. The Seish Kumar Leela in the Bhagavatam is extended over a few chapters. It begins, as we're seeing here, at maybe the last third of the 11th chapter of the 10th canto, but extends through the 12th and 13th, and in a philosophical sense, the 14th as well. The 14th being the prayers of Brahma, the 12th and 11th consisting of the picnic lunch, the bewildering, the slaying of Aghasura, the bewilderment of Brahma, and so forth. So, because the Brahma Vimohana Leela is such a rich mine of Gaudiya gems, of Gaudiya Siddhanta, um, it's given considerable treatment. And as such, the Seish Kumar Leela, which in one sense is not as his boyhood, because then he becomes a full cowherder and so forth. And in the midst of his Poganda, his adolescence starts to come out as well. So Gopi Bhav is also involved there, and so on. But from the point of view of Siddhanta, the theological and the philosophical foundation that underlies all this scriptural narrative, the play of Krishna, the Leela, the Bhakti Rasa, Sakya Rasa in particular, and its friends, Hasya Rasa, Yudhavira, play fighting, as we heard about the last couple of days, that was introduced as well. Because this Brahma Vimohan Leela appears at this time, and it's such a significant event, aside from the fact that this is Krishna's Seish Kumar Leela unto itself, it gives rise to more than 30 verses of Brahma in praise of Krishna, which are just, like I say, like a gems that his mind from the caves of Siddhanta, which is now giving so much support to the entirety of Krishna's Leela, whether it be the Vatsalya Rasa, Vatsalya showcased previously, or the Rasa Leela, which showcases the Madhurya Rasa going forward, and all of the Sakya Rasa in between. A very, very powerful philosophical foundation, if you will, on which this idea, this play of Krishna and his friends, etc., all Leela is built upon. Very important, very significant. So because the Brahma Vimoha appears there, well, then it's given some extra treatment. Not to say that the Seish Kumar Leela itself is more important and given more attention, but because this particular event, the enlightenment of Brahma, if we can call it the bewilderment of Brahma, or we can call it the enlightenment of Brahma, right? He was enlightened in the midst of his bewilderment to see the Aishvarya of Krishna, the contrast between Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan, and all that that means. Everything is within him, all the worlds and everything proceeds in the world, proceeds from him, and so on and so forth. And there he is standing, holding a flute, or a flute between his belt and his belly, and as we'll hear going forward, some rice and yogurt in his left hand, and so on and so forth. A stick for herding cows, and a horn, and all the paraphernalia required for calf herding. The contrast between the two is extraordinary. The Aishvarya and then the Madhurya, the humanness of Krishna. So again, this is an interesting point, because we talked earlier about how Sakya Rasa to the Madhurya Rasa dispensation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I mean, who could be a better support to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dispensation than Nanda Prabhu? I mean, that's what he's known for. Advaita is known for bringing him here. Gadadhar is known for helping him enter into the Radha Bhav. But as far as the distribution of the dispensation, the widespreading, this is Nityananda Prabhu's contribution. So who could be a better support for that? We've talked about that, the role of Sakya Rasa in the context of Krishna Gaur Leela. And we've talked about it also in terms of its support within Krishna to some extent, is just see also, this is another instance of how the Siddhanta of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is been so powerfully uh, uh, brought to us, given to us, shared with us through the medium or within the context of Sakyarasa, because this Brahma Vimohan Leela, it couldn't get more significant if, as he does, Jiva Goswami says, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. This one part of this one line of one verse of the Bhagavatam is the key to unlocking all philosophical significance, right? A medium through which this point that Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam has been emphasized. It's one thing to say it in one line of the Bhagavatam, but then to explain it in over sorry for the interruption there. We're back. You didn't miss anything, I don't think. We're just emphasizing another interesting point: the role of Sakyarasa in establishing the most significant philosophical point of the Gaudiya Vedanta, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. So, because of that, this Sesh Kumar Leelas is given some considerable space in the pages of the Bhagavatam. This is the prelude to that. Krishna's becoming a calf herder. And one of the things that most significant here in this section is that his heroism is coming out now, because this is a huge aspect of his Sakyarasa Leelas, in the Prakat Leela. His heroism, as I said, is an udipana for Sakyarasa, and it occurs day after day after day after day. And the tall tales of Krishna's exploits, of course, are brought back to the village and told and retold and so forth. So here they begin. And we heard yesterday that Vatsasura has come onto the scene. Kamsa reasoned something like this. He's killed Putana. He's killed Trinavarta, Shakatasura. And he's a big problem. These people were huge, powerful personalities. And in his infancy and childhood, he defeated them. How can I possibly accomplish my goal of slaying him? And then he thought and asked some of his advisors, what's very dear to him? What's very dear to him? And they said, well, he likes the cows and the calves. At this age, he's herding calves. He likes them. He loves the calves. He'll go up to the calves and put his forehead on the calf's forehead and say, do you want me to take you to your mother? Is that what you want? Like that. He'll talk to them and scratch and so forth. What could be more beautiful than a young calf, right? Prabhupada once asked, what is the most beautiful animal? And the devotee said, cow? And Prabhupada said, no, it's a horse. It's true that a horse is more beautiful than a cow, but not more beautiful than a calf. Right? So endearing, the heifer. or a young bull calf. Right? So this was the answer that Kamsa got from his his entourage. He loves the calves. So that's the idea that came in him. Decides herself as a calf and he will become the Vatsa, or a calf demon. He become a calf demon, disguised as a calf. And because he loves calves, his emotional content will overcome his what seems to be a powerful brain that he has, or mind, intelligence that he has. He was intelligent, we can assume, enough to figure out what the story was with Putana and Trinavarta and so forth. But if he loves the calves, then that love will get in the way of his ability to think clearly, right? And assess the situation accurately. Then you can slay him. The plan they made with great confidence, Vatsasura was sent off, and he's entered the herd now of the calf, the Vatsayuta, the herd of calves, disguised himself. But Krishna's omniscience has come to serve him, his Aishvarya Shakti, as we heard yesterday. So he knows. He loves the calves, but you're not a calf. That he could see. This is not a calf. Looks like a calf. With a discerning eye, he could understand this wasn't the case. With the assistance of his Aishvarya Shakti, he could understand the whole situation. And as we said yesterday, he gave signals to Balaram so as not to alarm anyone else who were all so much immersed in the play of Krishna Lila. And in consideration of that play, the playful nature of this particular scene, we heard about it in the previous verse. This next verse now, which will describe the actual liberation of Vatsasura, tells us something about this particular incident of heroism and how it was slightly muted in terms of the first act of heroism that was in plain sight. So let me cite the verse. Vahit vapara padabhyam sahalang gulam achyuta brahmaitva katipagre prahinod gata jivitam sakapita mahakaya patyamanai papataha tambiksha vishmita bhala shashamshu sadhu viti devascha parishantushta babhuva pushpavarshinaha. It says here that Krishna grabbed him by the tail. So in the midst of a group of cows, to pull one on the tail playfully, that's not uncommon. Indeed, in his childhood, sometimes Krishna would grab the tail of a cow and the cow would pull him. He'd go for a ride like that, become all dirty. Mother Yasoda would have to clean him off and so forth. So to pull on the tail of a calf playfully, he did. And then, oops, hold on. So playfully he grabbed the tail of the calf, and then also and also padabhyam, so halangulam. Halangulam, padabhyam means back legs and the tail, langulam, saha, together. So he grabbed the tail first, and then he grabbed the legs, like this. And it is the name here, a epithet invoked by Sukadeva is Achyuta. Achyuta then grasped the Asura's tail together with his hind hooves and whirled him about. Sukadeva has invoked the name Achyuta. Achyuta means infallible. Here he is using this to say that Krishna is going to protect his friends here. There's a danger amidst in their midst. They don't know it, but he's sure to protect them. So we are being advised, because we'll be concerned. A demon has come in the form of a calf, to kill Krishna. What will happen to the other boys as well, and so forth. And we were assured in the previous verse, no, he's Hari, don't worry. And now further assurance, he's Achyuta. He will protect the boys as well, in the context of stealing away the life of the demon, stealing away his demonic nature, taking it away, removing it. He will remove the demonic nature, and the result will be mukti. He will get mukti. And in the context of that, the devotees will have nothing to fear. He is Achyuta. He has grabbed the hind legs and the tail. And later on in the Bhagavatam, in the 26th chapter, the 26th chapter is the chapter that follows the entirety of it's kind of the aftermath of the Govardhan Leela. Govardhan Leela was an extraordinary Leela in that so many of Krishna's boyhood and late childhood Leelas that we're discussing now, we're entering into, are known to the villagers and the elders by way of the tales of this. These cowherds are very expert at spontaneous composition of cowherd songs, singing about their days, exploits, and so forth. Very musically inclined, right? Good dancers, singers, so forth. So they would compose songs about Krishna's exploits, and on the way home they would be singing them, and then of course they would tell them to their parents and so forth. But you have to appreciate that they were, how much they believed all these tales of Krishna's exploits is questionable. They took it with a grain of salt. Boys will exaggerate and tell stories and so on and so forth. But the Govardhan Leela was one of Krishna's exploits in which his Aishvarya manifest, and this was in full view of everyone in Braj. Everyone. Everyone saw it. And so after this, it gave them some pause. And they thought, and they conversed amongst themselves, and they began to reiterate some of the things that the boys had said. And the boys said he killed a calf demon, and the Bakasura, and the Agasura. And so they remembered these things that the boys had said and gave them more credibility, right? And thinking about it, of course, they thought their way out of the possibility that Krishna was not just one of them, not just their son. He was elders were speaking, but a god who they'd have to keep some distance from. They kind of talked their way out of that, if you will. But they were giving some more credibility to these leelas, so they were recounting them in brief. This is in the 26th chapter. I think, so somewhere in one of the verses, I forget which one there, this particular leela is discussed. And the verse concludes with lilaya. It means that speaks of how he playfully, in particular, liberated, if you will, the Vatsasura, playfully. So we looked at that verse to reflect back on this and appreciate how he slayed Vatsasura. It's particularly described as playfully, so as if to say, did he really do anything wonderful? He just played with the calf, pulling on her tail, pulling on her back legs, and twisting her around like this. And suddenly, a big demon came out and hit the Kapita tree and fell down, as the verse says. And when the Asura's life force left, Krishna threw him up in a Kapita tree. Kapita tree means It's called wood apple. Kapi tree also means a tree that monkeys reside in. We have lots of those here, right? So I guess this was nearby. Krishna threw him up in the tree, and he assumed a huge body. So he didn't throw the calf, if you will, up into the tree, but the demon. So what exactly transpired here? He's just playing around. He's not overtly dealing with an enemy that is obviously formidable, dangerous, and so forth. Everyone's totally relaxed. They're not on alarm or anything like that. He's playing with the calf, and suddenly, whirling her around, a demon comes out and he throws him up into the tree, or he whirls into the tree and falls from the tree. As he fell through the tree, so too did the wood apples. They all came down. Seeing the Asura in his original form, the boys were Vishmita. They were astonished, amazed, and surprised. And they praised Sham. Sadhu, sadhu, they said. It means, well done, well done. You could hear that sometimes in the Braj or in Bengal. You give a nice class, and the Indians would say, sadhu, sadhu, means well done, well, very good, very good, very good. So they play here, it's used in the text here. Sadhu, sadhu, and the devas, they're satisfied. But some of flowers, if you will, were liberated. And exactly what happened wasn't entirely clear. It wasn't obvious that Krishna had heroically slain a demon. So now we're just segueing away Kumar Lila, where his slaying of the demons was not clear at all. This is did he slay a demon or did he not? Some boys thought, oh, Krishna is very intelligent. They praised, in their song, they praised his intelligence. They said, he's so smart. He knew that was a demon. They reasoned like that, some of them. Though he was just amongst us as a calf, he could understand. See, and others praise his strength. He didn't do anything with the calf, but the demon, he threw the demon. He seemed like, was it he or was it the calf whirling that threw the demon? But they said, he's very strong. And other boys, they weren't sure what happened at all about this. But they ran up and collected the wood apples, which became the main focus, because collecting the wood apples, they began to throw them at the other boys. And so the whole thing was, forgotten about to some extent. It wasn't as traumatic of an event as one would think. This is a typical game. It's a beautiful story in this regard. It's not necessarily in relation to this particular Leela. I relate it in Circle of Friends, but it comes to mind now, and it's worth repeating. And this is that one of the games invented by the boys in their boyhood was just this. They couldn't buy baseballs or soccer balls or tennis balls, so they took fruits and used them as balls. These wood apples were very conducive. So the game was that you throw an apple at somebody, and it's whoever gets hit by the ball is eliminated. Who's ever hit by the ball is eliminated, one after another, and then whoever left standing is the winner. Right? Who didn't get hit by a ball, he's the winner. So in playing ball, Balaram is the most expert. He's most dexterous, most better than Krishna at playing ball. But Krishna is very, very crafty, so he's very, very sharp. So at any rate, at one point in playing this game, Krishna was dodging everyone expertly, and so one group of boys got together and said, let's knock him out, and then we'll fight amongst one another and see who wins. We don't want him to win, right? He's Nanda's son. He thinks he's special. We'll make sure that we hit him, right? So um, four boys went behind a banyan tree and hid with their fruit balls, right? Then the others chased Krishna over near the tree, and he was throwing and throwing and throwing. But when he got close to the tree, then they came out from behind him and bombarded him, and defeated him, right? And then he complained, "Foul, foul! They're hiding. That's not part of the game." And made a complaint, you know. And then, there was an uproar, you know. But no, there's no foul. That's not you. You think you're special, something like that. Right? Balaram mediated, and no foul. He was the played the role of the referee. No foul. But because Krishna objected, that was a foul. Therefore, he should be tied up to the banyan tree. So they tied him up to the tree. They tied Krishna up. Not only was he not fouled, but he was fouled. He was making a foul. Right? So they tied Krishna up to the tree. And there Krishna stayed by the tree while they played, weeping and weeping. But the question is, why was he weeping? He was weeping because he had detained Sakirasa. They were treating me as an equal. I had complained, I'm the son of the king. You can't do that to me. You can't sneak up on me like that. Boo! We don't accept that. Tie him up. It was very beautiful. Krishna said, they're dealing with me entirely as an equal. So charming, right? This way they would invent games. And with the falling of the apples, as I say, which were so suitable for the game, the slaying of Vatsasura, it's something to repeat and tell about a little bit, but what exactly happened, not entirely clear. And thus, the following Leela, which is the concluding Leela of this 11th chapter, is one in which immediately now his heroic prowess comes to light in no uncertain terms, right? We'll read a little bit more. I'll read from the commentary. It may be a little bit repetitive of what we've discussed, but it's worth reading. Because at first Krishna only played with the calf, whirling him about, his friends were astonished at the end result. Some Sakas praised him for his knowledge. Some praised him because he seemed to intuit that the calf was a demon in disguise. Others praised him for his strength, others. And some Sakas couldn't put together exactly what happened at all. So they praised Krishna as well and were astonished like the others. And these latter boys also were amazed at the yield of the apples that brought joy and led the charge to collect them and use them in sports, such as throwing them at one another. So this yield took precedence over the liberation of Vatsasura in the minds of the Sakas, because also no pious person, what to speak of a young coward boy, can bear the thought of a calf's death, even if she is an imitation heifer. So also because Vatsasura had taken this disguise, which was crafty and insidious on the part of Kamsa to come up with this plan, even an imitation calf, you couldn't think that Krishna slayed a calf, even if the calf was a demon. So this idea was kind of pushed a little to the background, right? In this connection, once a story comes to mind that in Vrindavan, Prabhupada was, I think it was in Vrindavan, was with some of his disciples, and Govardhan Puja was being celebrated. So they made a Govardhan hill out of halava and so many things, right? And they put little ornaments, trees, and cauliflower trees or whatever, and such things. And they made little cows also out of something, put them on the hill. And they brought the hill before Prabhupada and said, here's a Govardhan hill, Prabhupada, and it's all edible. But Prabhupada said, what is this? You want me to eat the cow? He was upset that there were cows there that were edible. He couldn't relate to that. That's how he felt. It is said in that the sages of Naimisharanya, the Bhagavatam opens up Naimishe Nimishatre Chetre Vishaya Sonakara, this assembly after the introduction in 3 verses. The assembly of Naimisharanya, sages are gathered, Sutta Goswami is seated to discuss the Bhagavat, right? It's said that when they heard that in Kali Yuga, people will eat cows, it was like saying, people will be eating their babies. Humans would think, what? How degraded it will become? Give you some idea how exalted the sages were in their culture, right? Talk about the cultural superiority. And this is how they thought. They couldn't, there's no place in their heads or hearts for such behavior. So rich, such a contributor to human society is the cow. I saw a documentary many years ago, and it was very well done, and it brought into question, who did the humans domesticate the cows, or did the cows domesticate the humans? Made a good argument for the possibility of the latter. Cows lend themselves to being kind of an in-between the human society and the wild. See how so how much there are other animals that lend themselves to domestication also, right? But the cows more so, and in doing so, they bring more to human society than a chicken or a pig or a goat, for example. So a great contributor to human society by their very nature. They seem to be prone towards such. And if you want to look at a particular historical perspective, however accurate it is, we don't know, but the man and humans, let's say, coming from hunters and gatherers, realize at a certain point that if we don't kill the cow, the bull will till the field. We can grow things. We'll have more food that we can grow and store and so forth to get through the winter than simply by slaying the bull. So with the domestication of the cows, the humans became domesticated. They became, from hunters and gatherers, they became agriculturalists, right? Which takes a little more intelligence. It's one thing to go and shoot something, right? Another thing to grow it, take care of it, culture it, and so forth. So the role of the cows in human society is something that's underscored in Hinduism, certainly in Vaishnavism, and for good reason. For good reason. So here, the idea that a calf was slayed, even a pretend calf, or a disguised, a demon in disguise of a calf, was something that they really couldn't think about. So it caused the whole affair to be dismissed to a greater extent in terms of Krishna killed a calf and it was a demon. They didn't feel inclined to trumpet that as loudly, if you will. They thought that how he played with the calf, but just cast an asura into the tree in order to acquire fruits, which led to the demon's demise. And the demon hadn't done anything particularly, hadn't shown himself to be particularly dangerous. Right? He just intelligently said, there's a demon in here, let me grab him. And with strength, he threw him to the tree. So he's smart, he's strong, and we got the fruits, and so forth. So the full face of Krishna's heroism as an Udipana for Sakyaras has not yet manifest, but it's beginning to. And with that, we'll continue to read a little bit more till we come to the next verse. The liberation of Vatsasura was certainly a heroic act and the first of its kind in the Vrajalila. Prior to this valor, well, we know, Krishna had killed Putana, Trinavarta, and so forth. These were overtly heroic acts. But as love, Krishna's the center of Krishna's love now shifts from his parents to his friends. This heroism plays a role. I'm emphasizing this here because this is interesting. I mean, this is important. This is where it enters here, and it just carries on through all of the Sakyaras Leelas. It's so significant, Krishna's heroism in the Prakat Leela. It's a very significant event, and how these boys feel about that. He did that. We could have done it too, but he did it, and it just gives them so much more reason to love him, if you will. So, citing then another day in Harisesh Leela, Sukadev sets the scene for the liberation of Bakasura. I'm not sure. I should look at it here and perhaps edit this. It's another day or just right afterwards it happened. What happened? The boys approached a familiar pond to water the cows and to swim in themselves. They would let the cows go and take water first, and then they would try to drink from the pond like the cows, like this, without using a cup. They were so identified with the calves, their leaders. They would conduct themselves, and then they would let the cows bathe, and they would swim, and so forth. The boys approached a familiar pond to water the cows, only to encounter a huge crane, a huge duck, or some kind of bird. That resembled a mountain peak, top of a mountain that had been cut off by a thunderbolt. So big, this big bird. Some places say it was, some commentators say he was standing on one leg, and had his head kind of looking down at his beak with his eyes, and the feather off the back of his head looked like he had a sikha. Maybe he was a devotee in meditation, standing on one leg, or a rishi or something like that. It wasn't clear exactly what. They're trying to sort out what this fellow was, but huge in size, and they soon found out he had a menacing nature. He was evil-minded. They picked up sticks, the boys. What do we do to protect Krishna? And of course, then suddenly he grabbed Krishna by his beak and began to swallow him. And seeing this, what to speak of the boys, even Balaram was stunned. Stamba. This is a form of the Sattvika Bhav. When he's in the Sattvika Bhav of being stunned. So the omniscience of Balaram is in the background, right? And his playfulness as an ordinary boy is in the foreground. So like the others, then he went into a state of being stunned, and Krishna's now in the mouth of Bakasura. And Bakasura is a mean guy. He is the brother of Putana. So he had not only the orders of Kamsa to motivate him, and enmity in general towards the gods, but Krishna had already slain his sister as well. So he has extra impetus, right, to slay Krishna. But as he swallowed Krishna, the boys fainted, and only Ram remained conscious, but he was momentarily stunned and unable to respond. His omniscience receding to the background, and his fraternal love in the foreground. And it took precedence. But quickly, as he had been devoured by Baka spit him out. And when he spit him out, then the very life of the boys, the pran is the life air, but Krishna is their life air, the life air of Brahman, Balaram. So when he was spit out, these sattvika bhavas, they manifest spontaneously in the body by contacting different elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether. When they contact water, there will be tears, perspiration, this kind of sattvika. So it rides this bhava on the airs. And so here, these boys, Krishna is compared to Balaram and the boys' life air. And the implication is further that this sattvika bhav has content a particular element that causes the stunning, and when Krishna is freed from the beak, then they come out of this. The sattvika bhav recedes, and they can again function. But the point here is what? That Baka spit him out and brought therefore the boys came back to life, and the boys witnessed, as they came to life, the heroism of Krishna in no uncertain terms. Now it's very clear. This Baka is not like a calf hidden, but he's clearly menacing. He's just grabbed Krishna with his beak and tried to swallow him, but he spit him out. Hari was too hot and spicy for Baka to swallow. Owing to his offense, the Asura had no taste for rasa. Krishna is rasa, rasa vaisa, Taittiriya Upanishad says, Brahman is rasa. So he had no taste for rasa. He was an aparadi rather than a rasika. And Krishna and his name are bitter to the tongue, afflicted by aparad. So sometimes different devotees have looked at these prakat leelas in which Krishna's heroism is exhibited and the demons are slain or liberated, and looked at them from a metaphorical or allegorical vantage point to draw some inspiration in terms of their life as sadhakas. How, in other words, to deal with obstacles in their life or aparads, or they may have committed that have created obstacles, or the obstacles of anarthas. Bhaktivinoda, for example, has recommended review these leelas to overcome the various anarthas and identify them, those anarthas, with different demons. So you find you have a certain anartha, you identify with this particular leela. This is the way to overcome it, by meditating on that leela. It has that power. This is a good recommendation, and based on that, different devotees have reasoned in different ways how this demon represents this. Bhaktivinoda has given his own examples. There may have been someone before him that did this as well, and I'm not aware of whom in terms of the tradition of commentary, but I've seen, I think Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, following Bhaktivinoda, also said things in this regard, or made these kind of connections. But there's some license to do this. It's not a hard and fast, this demon only means this, or this is creative and artful, skillful, in terms of employing, if you will, remembering the Leela as a means to cleanse the heart. And given that, it can be said that here, the slaying of Bakasura represents the slaying of Namaparad. Namaparad. He couldn't take Krishna on his tongue. He spit him out. If we don't have a taste for Krishna Nam, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments in the Bhagavatam, on a verse in the Bhagavatam, that tells us that, if chanting the name, one does not feel, does not experience sattvika bhavas. I'm just giving a brief paraphrase of the verse, I forget the verse itself. Then it has that power. We see it in great devotees. It's not happening to you, the problem is yours, right? Some aparad in the background, right? So much as we are given the gracious name is more even gracious, merciful than Krishna himself. The name and the named, right? Rupa Goswami says, Vinatam Namanami. They're one. Hmm? But in his Namastakam, he says, but still the name is even more merciful. You could offend the form of Krishna, still the name will come. What's a good example? Brahma offended the form of Krishna, right? By stealing his friends, or trying to. But the name went with him in his birth as Haridas, stayed with him. Brahma became Haridas Thakur in Gaur Leela. And Krishna stayed with him in the form of his name. So the name is said to be non-different, but different in this way, more generous. So such a generous dispensation, Mahaprabhu says, I should nam namakari bahuda nijasarva shakti statararpita niyamiti smananena dharma. Etadrishi tabakriva bhagavan mamapi daivam edisham yajani nanu raga. So merciful, so generous. Can chant anywhere, anytime, right? Many names. I have all your Shakti in them, but I have no attraction because of Anartha, he says. Anuraga, I have no, non-anuraga, I have no attraction. This is my condition. So therefore, emphasis on Namaparad should be given. We should militate against that, right? And here is a nice Leela that we can recall and call upon Krishna, just as you slayed this Vatsasura. Please give me the power to chant your holy name without any offense. May overcome any offenses. Not that I chant and make offense to the name at the same time. No. Give me the strength. So this is beautiful because we call on the Leela, which is very high. For a very beginning thing, but very significant, important thing, right? So Krishna's rasa, rasa, and he serves him as such, taste rasa, and the rasa, there is rasa and nam, nam rasa, right? Nam sankirtan. Sankirtan rasa is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tasted in the courtyard of Srivas Thakur, and then from there it overflowed. He gave it to the world. From Kirtan Rasa, Sankirtan Rasa, then the Sakya Rasa, Madhurya Rasa, and so forth. That will come about. So then, last verse, Tam apantam sa nighaya dayor dobhyam bak kam sa sakam patam satampati prashyatsu baleshu dadara lilaya mudhavaho virana vad nivokasam. Then as the boys looked on, he who is Satampati, that's Krishna. He's the protector of the righteous, right? Satampati arrested Baka as the crane attacked him. He spit him out, right? Baka spit him out. He could not chant the holy name. It was not possible for him. He spit him out, and then he again attacked Krishna, but with his two arms, he grabbed his mouth and split his beaks, upper and lower beak, and playfully split Kamsa's friend, as he's described here, Kamsa Sakam. He was a friend of Kamsa. The contrast, right? The friends of Krishna, the friend of Kamsa. Friendship is everywhere, right? Split the beak of Kamsa's friend in two, as if bifurcating a blade of Virana grass. Virana grass is another name for the sacred kush, used in sacrifices and so forth. Delighting, as he did, the denizens of heaven. This is the end, really, of the 11th chapter, which introduces in the final third of the chapter, as we say, this Sage Kumar Lila. Sanatana Goswami comments that Krishna did not take Bakasura by surprise, like he did Vatsasura. After the boys regained external consciousness, they were engrossed in the scene before them. He did this, in this case, or he did this in case his friends thought his apparent heroism in slaying Vatsasura was a fluke. Fluke means, I don't know, some mistake, something happened there out of the ordinary. No, this is the norm for him. And this point is, this will become the norm for him now, day after day after day after day, right? This set the stage for many acts of heroism to follow that punctuate the Sakiras Prakat Leelas, Krishna's heroism. Kamsa Nisudana ki jai. Right? Not only did he kill all these demons one after another, but he slayed Kamsa himself, who they all worked for. Well, that was the point. So we'll end there. It's a little early today. What's the time? Are there any questions?
Question is every day during grazing the cows some demon slay, they are just not described, or there are some other pastimes?
Well, I don't understand your question.
Does it mean like that from that point every day there will be some demon while they are in the forest grazing the cows? Or
well, day after day, maybe not every day. Is that what you're asking? Maybe not every day, but so many days. So many of the days are described, right? So many demons. And only a few are mentioned. What else? Another question? Yes.
Maharaj, I heard in your lecture that cowherd boys sometimes are the demigods who appear.
Yeah.
So it's the same for example for the calves, or only reserved to cowherd boys. But some, I mean, saints or these devotees who are not in Nitya Siddha are just cow.
Cowherd boys, you're asking about in terms of the fact that they are said to be Nitya Siddhas or sadhakas coming from heaven or coming from earth. What about the calves?
Yes.
That's your question. What about the calves? What about the trees? So these other forms, non-human forms, are not described in this way. So we should not think I would like to become a tree in Vrindavan or a cow. The point being here, in one sense, the point is that the fullness of the rasa of Sakya, the fullness of the rasa of parental love, fullness of the rasa of romantic love, for example, in relation to who? Krishna, right? What form is Krishna in? He's in a human-like form. So to taste the fullness of Sakya rasa or Madhurya rasa, which Krishna is the object, you have to have a human-like form. So these are the possibilities for sadhakas. Otherwise, if you're as a calf or a cow, you might have some, calves are mothers, so you could say calves have vatsalya rasa, but the calf can't experience the fullness. Now, that is possible in human form. You understand? So, therefore, still the question is, well, what is the situation with these such the cows, the calves, for example? Now, some acharyas look at the issue. They look at it in different ways. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur described the hills of Vrindavan like Nandagram, Arshana, Govardhan as being in Sakirasa. Sometimes the creepers, the vines are described as Madhurya Rasa. Cows as Vatsalya Rasa. Some acharyas describe these as Shantarasa. The Shantarasa also there in this way, as the setting and so forth. So there are different conjectures on this, but the point is that well, another way to look at also, if you have the bhav of Sakirasa, then part of that bhav has to include cows and calves. The bhav is your form. It's your nature and all that goes with it. You get the bhav of a cowherd boy, the expansion of that bhav, the extension of that bhav is going to include parents. The extension of that bhav is going to include cows. Each of the boys has their own cows, or their father's cows that they're taking care of. It's a lot of cows because Nanda Maharaj has 900,000. How many does Vrishabhanu Maharaj have? And Sudama's father and Vasudama's father, a lot of cows. So another way to look at this is that which is relative to the particular rasa, required for it to be fully in place, is an extension of the bhav itself. Do you understand? So if you develop the bhav of Sakirasa, parents are going to manifest like cows. Those are your parents, of course. That's one way to look at that. We see Gopakumar. He said he enters into the family of Radha, Sridham and Radha. These are ways of talking about it. Talking about an existing primary parents of Radha and Sridham, the parents of Krishna, Nanda, Yashoda. Sometimes they said, think of them as your parents, as a beginning. But anyway, your own parents will come. So now that said, it's also mentioned in his commentary on Ujjval Nilmani. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes the comment that some sadhakas, spiritual aspirants, they're sadhakas, not Gaudiya sadhakas, but some sadhakas, they engage in angropasana. They thinking of the examples of devotion as themselves. I have to look at his commentary. He gives it. No, I'm sorry. They think of themselves like I am a cow, or I am Krishna. Even Angupasana. I am Krishna. I am Sridham. This is not part of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Sadhana, but it is a form of sadhana that's found in the scriptures. Right? It says they become, in the optimum, well, what they contain is their atma merges with cows and other trees, perhaps, in Vrindavan. They reside there. Now, the trees of Vrindavan in the Bhagavatam have also been described as saintly persons who have attained the status of trees. But there's no sadhana for that. So it's talked about in different ways. But our concern, it's an interesting question, of course, but our concern is that we want to taste the fullness of any particular rasa. We have to have a human form to relate with Krishna. And the other attending forms that are necessary for that, that will be part of the bhav of the whole scene. Whether it's our bhav or our parents Bahava. It's all Bahava. Right? That help?
Yes.
Interesting subject. What else? Yes.
Maharaj, you said today about Aishwarya of Krishna during Brahma Vivaha Lila. And we spoke on Bhagavad Gita. I spoke to you. We have a meeting of Bhagavad Gita. And one devotee said that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna showed Arjuna.
Yes.
This form is not real, but it's like no, that this form has no any existence in the spiritual world. So I'm asking, is it true or about this cosmic form?
Virata Rupa.
Virata Rupa. So,
the Virata Rupa is not a form of Bhagavan with which you can have Lila. The Virata Rupa is just a way of saying, what is the Virata? It's just a way of saying everything is inside of Krishna. Krishna showed everything is inside of me. And that may describe, he had many hands and many legs, and the Upanishads use that language too. And the Gita does also in the 13th chapter, in a very Upanishadic verse. Everywhere were his hands, legs, and Advaitacharya was trying to understand that verse from a bhakti point of view, where we serve the form of Krishna personally. And he's saying, everywhere are my hands and legs and eyes, and how do I understand that verse? Mahaprabhu told him that when devotees offer, wherever they offer, his hands are there. Wherever they sing his name, his ears are there. Something like that. He has that power. Not that he has many heads and many hands, right? Many legs and so forth. That's very beautiful. But the Virata Rupa just means, as Krishna says, that Jagadavyata Murtina, the whole world is inside of me. And I'm outside of it too. You find that in the Damodar Leela, or in the Vatsalya Leelas, where Krishna ate dirt. Mother looked inside, saw Krishna, saw the universe inside of Krishna, and saw Krishna in that universe, and saw herself looking inside of his mouth. These are just ways of saying it's a panentheistic perspective. Everything is in God. So there is God, and everything is inside of him as well. And this pertains, what is the everything? That means the material world. So why would we be showing that in the spiritual world? This is this form, if you will, of God. Virata Rupa is also described in the Bhagavatam in the 2nd chapter. When Sukadeva begins his narrative or his speech, his teachings, he begins to talk about the universal form. It means it's a very primary way of thinking about God. You see the sun, you think, it's the eye of God, he's looking at me. And it never closes, because when the sun goes down, the moon comes up. With his other eye, he's looking at me. Or he's squinting through the stars. So he's always there. He's always remembering. Or the trees are like the hairs on his body, and so on. The mountains are his bones. It's a way of looking at the natural world and remembering God. So it's useful. But for devotees, of course, they have the adhikar to meditate on the form of Krishna. Another example is that in the 5th canto, there's this whole description of the cosmography, right? And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that this Sukadeva asked this question so that or Parikshit asked the question so that Sukadeva would answer in such a way and give a description that would be useful for yogis in the audience. Whereas for Parikshit himself, that description was not very important or useful because he had the adhikar to meditate on the form of Krishna. So yeah, the universal form. It's not something There's no Leela of Krishna in the spiritual world of the universal form. What else? Anything else? I don't know if we're still broadcasting there. I see the names here, right? Harijan, Mohan, Shakti, and others. Nice to be with you all. Haribol. Who else there? Just Govinda, Krishna Chaitanya. All right, so we will stop there, and tomorrow we'll begin anew. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Ki Jai. Sushiraji Gopal Ki Jai. Go Bhakta Binda Ki Jai. Go Prem.